A couple of products set to launch from Apple before the end of the year. We've got iPad Pros, we've got maybe a Mac Mini, we've got some M2 equipped MacBook Pros, and then the one more thing, maybe a Mac Pro or a sneak peek at a Mac Pro. Matt, is there just not enough here for an event, or what happened to the rumored October event that looks like it's not happening anymore?
Yeah, I mean, last year we got two events, right? I'm thinking last year, that was correct.
Was that last year?
So we had, I'm pretty sure it was last year. That's when we got the iPad Mini, and then whatever. I'm pretty sure last year we got two
MacBook
events.
Pro?
Or let's just say
Right?
at one
Something
point
like
we
that.
got at one point we got MacBook Pro, duh. That's when that's when it was released. So point being, we have too many products for one event, but the question is now, do we have not enough for another event? And really the whole question here, I mean, it was kind of the assumption that we would have a second event just because it's something that they've done before. But what's started to question this is from Mark Gurman, like you mentioned, although as far as I'm aware, he doesn't have a source for this, or maybe that has changed, but initially there was no real source. It was just kind of a speculation based on what they were announcing. So we very well could see a new event, but like you said, yeah, the updates here are very minor. So I guess we can just go through them in a little more detail. We'll start with iPads. So the base iPad, the cheapest iPad that they have, should actually be the biggest update of all these products, surprisingly, because it's for the first time in years supposed to get a new design. So with a bigger screen, possible like squared off design, but with still a home button. There's some conflicting reports on this. Some people have said that it will actually get the a power button, Touch ID button, but others have said that it's still going to stick with the regular home button with the bezels and everything. It's just going to have a more squared off design. Is that what it's sounding like still?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they could go either way. I feel like with this base entry level model, home button makes sense. I'm sure the customer base is used to that, but the in power button method would also be a little bit more premium. So I don't know which way they could go. I guess it's going to come down to cost, what costs less to implement. And if I had to guess, probably to stick with the regular home button, right? They've had so many of those
That's
parts
what I'm
made,
thinking.
it's just they've got a stockpile. So that'll be exciting. At least it looks different.
Yeah, no, it'll be actually kind of interesting to see what a squared off iPad looks like with a home button. That'd be kind of interesting. I'd be like, do they keep the top bezel just as big as the bottom bezel like they do now? Even though, I mean, that would look weird if it was like one-sided. So yes, they probably would. But yeah, no, it'd be interesting. I guess the only downside to this is that there is a rumor that the price will go up a little bit. Right now it's $329, which is a incredible deal for what you're getting. Like the fact that you can buy an iPad with basically all the same features of every other iPad, but for $329, it's a steal, honestly. But maybe that goes up to like $379 or something. Although, the rumors across the board this year were that Apple's going to be raising prices, and they didn't really do that. So who knows? Maybe it stays the same. Now the next iPad, the iPad Pro, this is, I mean, I'm trying to decide, would the iPhone 14 be a worse decline than the iPad? Because the iPhone 14 rumors at first were like, wow, this is going to be the best iPhone ever. And then it just slowly went downhill. The iPad kind of started the same. We had all these rumors, a new design, glass back, wireless charging, all these things. And then it slowly has gone to basically an even more boring upgrade than the iPhone 14. So what are we going to see with this?
I should say, with very rare exception, when Apple does a press release announcement, which is what they typically do, the updates are pretty insignificant. Like with my 2020 iPad Pro that was announced by a press release, they added LiDAR, they added a new chip, and that was it. Which is unfortunately...
Oh, no, it had LiDAR. Yeah, you're right, LiDAR. It still had two cameras already, or did they add
Right, they added LiDAR, and they added the... I think that was it, which is looking like that's probably going to be a very similar story for the new iPad Pro, which probably is just M2 inside, and then maybe some very minor changes, but it's looking like a really boring year for the iPad Pro. I mean, honestly, not a good year for the iPad Pro because of iPad OS and Stage Manager. It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess. The other hardware rumor was that there would be a 4-pin dock connector rather than a 3-pin. People are, speculating what that means. I don't know. Maybe it charges faster and there will be actual accessory support for it. That was one of my favorite things when the first iPad Pro was released back in, what was that, 2016, maybe 2015, something like that. But that dock connector was awesome because, well, it does exactly what it does now, but there was one accessory that ever existed for the iPad Pro that was my favorite accessory ever that I wish someone would make, and it was from Logitech, and it was a dock that you would just place the iPad on, and you would use that dock connector and charge the iPad. So it's a base that you just literally set it on, better than wireless charging because you don't have to magnetize anything. It was perfect. And for whatever reason, that's the only accessory that ever came out for this dock connector. So maybe if they put a little bit more emphasis on this, there would be more products that come out for that. But I don't know. I'm not holding my breath for that. I guess there is still speculation that MagSafe will be coming, but we don't know what that means exactly. Is that going to be the iPhone version? Is that going to be the Mac version? Personally, I'd much rather it be the Mac version, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, the M2, like you mentioned. Oh, well, I guess the screen on the 12.9 is still going to be mini LED, which is great. Still one of my favorite displays on any device. But that is not coming to the 11-inch, so that sucks for all the 11-inch users. Yeah, I mean, it's just, that's it. I mean, maybe they're going to come out with new colors for the cases, but that's about it.
Yeah, not a super exciting year, which lends a lot of reasons as to why it would be a press release, because there's really not a whole lot to say. I guess the other thing is, in sort of the Mac side of things, there's a lot of speculation as to what we could see. A couple of things in the air right now. Maybe a new M2 Mac Mini. Though first we heard again from some rumors that we were going to see a redesign. Remember that colorful redesign that we thought made a lot of sense? Now we're hearing that the design is going to stay the same, so who knows?
Yep.
And then MacBook Pros makes a lot of sense. We should be getting some M2 updates, so you'd have the M2 Pro and the M2 Max instead of the M1 Pro and Max, which... I mean, if the M2 is anything to go off of, if like you're going to buy a MacBook Pro for the very first time, then great, you're going to be happy with it. But for us who have the M1 versions, not sure if it's worth a fire sale, jump to the new one equivalent, probably not worth it, but that should be coming. And then Mac Pro, which we have heard nothing on. So who knows, Matt, do you think we're going to see at least a sneak peek of this at the end of the year or by the end of the year? Do you think this is something that just gets held on until next year?
Yeah, if they do an event, then yes, because this would be the most boring event of all time. But if they don't do an event, then no, we're not going to see anything about it. I'm trying to think of like what else we might see. There is rumors of an Apple TV bump from A12 to A14. Fine, and that seems not to be a product differentiator. It's just more of a, we don't want to make the A12 processor anymore, so we're just going to use the A14 now. So boring with that. I guess there were some rumors about a possible updated Siri remote, or they don't call it the Siri remote anymore. What do they call it? Apple TV remote. But whatever. I guess it would have like a gyroscope inside so that you can play games and stuff.
Useless.
Yeah, useless. And then the only other thing that I could see getting an update, but probably not, is a processor bump to the iPad mini, but I don't think that's going to happen. We haven't heard anything about it, but I could see it easily getting the A16 in there. Yeah, that's it. iPad Air got updated not too long ago, so that's not going to happen. It's, I mean, here, on one hand, it's sad days because these are just the most boring updates ever. On the other hand, I mean, part of the reason why this is all the upgrades that they're doing is because there's not much else to do. I mean, the MacBook Pros, nearly perfect. The iPad Pros, I mean, it's boring because of how long it's been since we've had an update, major update. But if you really just, take a step back and look at the iPad Pro, excellent device. There's a lot of things software-wise that I would want to change, but the hardware itself is great. Apple TV, whatever, that's a whole different discussion. And then everything, everything's actually really good. So it's not a bad thing that this is what we're getting. It's just, it doesn't make for an exciting October, let's say.
I feel like everybody loves to criticize Apple because we criticize and judge everything Apple does. But for like the regular person who's walking into Apple store, nice to see some updates. I mean, like, again, not earth-shattering, but if you're already waiting to buy an iPad Pro, or you've been waiting to get a MacBook Pro, and you're sort of waiting maybe for a holiday gift and you're waiting for a good time, new updates around the corner, now would be a great time, and you're going to be happy, and you're sort of going to get a little bit more future-proofed with those newer processors inside. But like you said, MacBook Pro just got an update, looking fantastic. iPad Pro, it's been a while, but it's still a really good piece of hardware. I mean, there's not a whole lot for Apple to do, so I think a press release or, a silent upgrade, however they want to do it, makes a lot of sense, and would definitely give us a lot to look forward to for next year once they sort of have these things checked off the list. I guess sort of another reason to go against the event theory is that we're recording this on October 5th. When would they do an event? I mean, we're sort of, the clock is ticking literally, and I just don't know. I'd have to look at a calendar, but the more time that passes, the less likely an event seems to be.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think last time for the previous event, they did a 2-week notice. So if they're going to do it in October, I mean, next week at the latest, they'd have to let us know, right? So, yeah, I don't know. And then I guess the other question kind of going along with that is, do you think if these are press releases, are they going to do what they did that one year? I think that was 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. Do you think they're going to do the day after day announcements, or are they just going to drop everything at once?
I don't know. I mean, that was funny with Tim Cook. What would he be? He was like drawing, except for he had the AirPods in and all the weird stuff. I could just, on one hand, as someone who, covers this stuff, I just wish they'd just drop it all at once. We just sort of get it out of the way. Like, hey, here's a press release. Here's some changes we made. I could also see Apple sort of doing a staggered release where they do iPad Pro one day, then the base iPad, and then Mac Mini. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't think it super matters, but I am curious every day to see, around 6 a.m. or 9 a.m. Pacific, what ends up hitting as an embargo or press release, and sort of what just another day that goes by that we hear nothing. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens.